Welcome back to Keeping It 100 podcast. Since our last session, it's been a minute since we've come back together, but I am extremely excited about some things that is going on with me. First, I'd like to thank everyone who signed my petition to help me officially get on the ballot for this fall coming election. Yes, I am running for mayor of Syracuse. But this particular podcast is about giving information, informing people of who I am, what I am about, and what my purpose is. First and foremost, integrity. Secondly, transparency. And then third, just being crystal clear and honest with the people of the city of Syracuse about everything that is going on with me and around me. This particular podcast, I wanted to come to you to talk about an issue that has arisen. It took place with me September 22nd, 2022, when I was traveling on a business trip out of the country in Rochester, New York. You've seen the news, you've heard the chatter, you've heard different stories, but you haven't heard the truth. I am a truth teller. For those of you who know that I always speak truth to power. I have nothing to hide, and I am sincere about being a person of integrity. So when I become your mayor, you will know that you're dealing with a man who has integrity. So let's just start exactly where things transpired on that day. On that day, September 22nd, I drove to Rochester. Well, September 21st, I drove to Rochester, stayed with a relative. Woke up that morning, took a shower, put on my things, put on my sling, because I had just had surgery, I think probably the first week of September, sometime around there. I had surgery on my right shoulder. So I put on my sling, and as many of you know, you don't know, that I'm licensed to carry a firearm. I've been licensed for some time. And so I had my firearm with me because, as you know, for those who know me, I always carry my firearm because I'm licensed to carry a firearm. So what happened was that morning, after I took a shower, after I put on my sling, getting ready to go, I ate a half a sandwich and I took 2 hydrocodones, 7.5s, and I took 800 milligram Motrin. And I had to drive to my friend's house, Harold, who lived literally 10 minutes away. And so I knew that before that hydro would kick in, it generally takes about 30 to 35 minutes. My drive was a quick 10-minute drive. Boom, I'm at his house to pick him up so that he can then take me to the airport so that I can go on this business trip. And he was going to follow me the next day because he had to work, so he was leaving out the next day. And generally, when I've traveled out of Rochester, Harold is also a licensed firearm holder. I generally take my gun and place it in his safe. And legally, you can do that. You have to be able to store your firearm with someone who is licensed to carry as well. And so that is the normal procedure in which I have conducted and that he and I has done in the past. So when I got to his home, I had to go over some things with my vehicle because I was having some issues with my auxiliary battery. So I had to explain to him, if you have to drive my vehicle, this is what you have to do to get the vehicle going. So I had the little charge pack inside the trunk. So I'm telling him that, just explaining just some things, for him, just in case he had to drive my vehicle or he needed to move my vehicle, whatever, and it didn't start. So that took some time, maybe about 20, 25 minutes. Then he ran up and grabbed a little pouch for me so that I can carry my passport and things of that nature. So again, 25 minutes, 30 minutes had kind of went by during this process. So by that time, obviously, those hydros started kicking in. And obviously, well, not obviously, but I just literally forgot to say, hey, take this firearm, put it in your safe. So I got in the passenger side of my vehicle. He got in the driver's side. We went from his house to the airport. Got to the airport, went and checked in. He took my bag out of the trunk. I actually didn't know. I asked him, like, how did my bag get out of the trunk? He told me, oh, yeah, I took your bag out. Because by that time, quite honestly, I was a little loopy. I was coherent and cognitive of, most things, but, a little loopy from the medicine, medication I took, because I knew I was going to be on a long flight. So it was about being able to relax and being able to really go to sleep on this flight. So I get checked in through the counter. Now I'm at TSA. I get to TSA, I empty my pockets, give them my phone, give them all the things that I have. And I have my brace on. And I'm gonna grab my brace so that you guys can see exactly what my brace looks like. This is the brace that I was wearing from when I had surgery on my shoulder. And I'm gonna use my phone as a prop. That's my firearm, because I carried a Hellcat, which was kind of small, 3.1 inches, and it fits right inside there. Now, routinely, because I always carry my firearm with me, and I normally carry on my right side because I'm right hand, and I didn't have a left side holster because I'm right hand dominant. And so someone would say, well, then how was you able to use your firearm if you're right hand dominant? Well, as a trainer, because I was a trainer with BMD Security, helping people get their license to carry, one of the things that we've taught people and teach people is that you need to learn how to shoot with both hands. So when I would go to the range, and I've spent many of hours at the range that I'm a member of the club, I would go and I would shoot with my left hand and my right hand so that I could, in a heightened situation, if something happened and I became incapacitated with my right hand, that I would still be able to use my firearm if I was in a situation where I had to defend myself or to preserve life. So my firearm was sitting here, like my cell phone is, inside my brace, where's my firearm was sitting in, and I'm gonna take it out, but I could leave it in. It was sitting right here. So when I got to the airport, and I went to go through the security checkpoint, I had my brace on, and it was a female, and she was like, we need to do a pat search, and I was like, no problem. She said, well, we have to call a male. Okay, no problem. So we were waiting for a male TSA person to come and pat me down. And so I said to the TSA agent, well, listen, we don't need to wait. I just want to get on my flight so that I can begin to relax. Because again, like I said, I took them hydros, I was getting a little sleepy. I said, but I can take this brace off if you assist me so that we can get this clear and I can get on my flight and be gone. She was like, no worries. So we went from the beginning where the belts come over to her table. Went to her table and I took the sling off like this, and she helped me. She then reached over the table to take this piece off like such, and I literally handed it to her just like this, with my firearm still inside the brace. as my phone looks. And it was literally just like that. But again, I didn't even see my firearm because I handed it to her. So there was never, as the press tried to portray, an issue where I was trying to sneak or hide or smuggle my firearm on a flight to go out of the country. That notion is not only asinine, but completely false and just a blatant lie by the media to say that I was doing such a thing. Especially given the fact that I was on my way out of the country on a business deal to purchase myself and my brother and my friend, one of my good friends. We was on our way on a business deal to purchase some property in the DR. We had an excellent deal that was going forward. And we had to be there because they needed my wet signature. And the meeting was scheduled that Friday, I believe. Thursday or Friday. I'm not sure the exact dates because it was September 22nd. I could probably look at my phone and go back and scroll back to see the exact date. But the meeting was scheduled for that morning. So I know my brother, Darby, and Harold was flying out the next day. I had got my flight because, in terms of saving money, you fly out sooner at a different time, money-wise. So in the event, that's what took place with the firearm. So when I handed it to the TSA agent, I went and sat down. They got a chair for me. They, made it comfortable. They gave me a place to rest my arm because, as I indicated, I just had surgery. So I'm, sitting there waiting. The sheriff's woman comes over to me and she says, Mr. Davis, do you know why you're still sitting here? And I said, yes. They have my brace. It has metal in it. They're checking it out. I said, I just had surgery. Da, 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 da. She said, no, there's a firearm in there. And immediately, I was feeling a little loopy, but immediately, I perked up. And my response was, oh shit. So from there, she said, are you licensed to carry? And I said, yes, I completely forgot to put my firearm inside my buddy's safe because I, done this before. I locked my firearm in his gun safe and it's secure. It's in a secure location with, a legally licensed individual. And so she said, okay. I said, but let me get my phone. I can call him and he could bring my license over so that I can show you that not only am I licensed to carry my firearm, but this particular firearm, which was my Hellcat, is on the back of my license along with my other firearms. And she said to me, oh, no worries. Where are you licensed to carry? And I said, Onondaga County. She said, okay. So she got on the phone. She made a phone call. Her phone call was, I'm assuming, to her superior. They gave her a number to call. She called the number. She didn't get an answer. Then she called her superior again. They gave her a different number, and she got an answer. And she said, what's your date of birth? January 1st, 1966. She then proceeded to give them the information. It was like, oh, yes, Mr. Davis is licensed to carry his firearm. She looked at the serial number. She read the serial number. They said, yes, that's his firearm on his gun. Boom, fine. So then she came back to me. She hung up, came back to me and said, okay, Mr. Davis, we're going to get this. She says, just an appearance ticket. We'll get this taken care of so you can get on your flight and be on your way and you could deal with it when you come back. So I'm like, okay, great. So I'm sitting there waiting for them to finish doing the paperwork and process. Like less than 2, 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, her phone rang. She stepped away from the table. I'm sitting at the table. In the chair. There's a table here. She stepped away, took the call, and then she came back. And I knew that something was different. Because less than 2 minutes later, to my right, another sheriff appears in my peripheral vision, to my right. And then I look to my left, and 2 gray coats come up. So I'm like, okay, now the fuckery is in. Pardon my language. But that's literally what I said. The fuckery is in. The next thing they said, well, Mr. Davis, we are going to move you from this area so that we can open this up because we don't want to stop other travelers from coming through. Oh, but don't worry, we'll get you on another flight. Now, I knew that was BS because you don't just get another flight out of the country. I wasn't traveling to Chicago or to a city nearby me. I was literally traveling out of the country. So you got to fly to your first destination, get your connecting flight, and then you get to your destination. So you don't just get another flight. So I knew that was a lie. They took me downstairs, put me in this room, and they had another sheriff sitting at the door of the room in a chair, I guess, guarding me. So I'm sitting in this room. They didn't give me no phone. They didn't give me my phone. They didn't give me my belongings. And I'm just sitting there waiting. And they came and I said, okay, well, who are we waiting for? Oh, we're waiting for the air marshal from Buffalo because their air marshal was on vacation. So I'm like, okay. So the air marshal comes in. Before the air marshal come in, the Monroe County Sheriff officer come in, and he asked me, please explain to me this scenario. So I explained to him exactly what happened. Woke up, took my shower, took 2 hydros, took a Motrin, ate a half a sandwich, came here, literally forgot to take my firearm and put it in my buddy's case so that I can make my flight. That's exactly what happened. So then he said, okay, and left out. Then the TSA air marshal, not the TSA air marshal, but the air marshal came in, pulled out his tablet, said, Mr. Davis, how are you? Told me who he was, identified himself, said, please explain to me what happened. Told him exactly what happened. We went through everything verbatim. He left. So now I'm still waiting. I'm like, okay, by this time it's like 7:30, about 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock. I'm waiting. Next thing you know, the ATF shows up. Mr. Davis, please explain to me what happened. I told them the exact same thing. This is what happened. It was an honest mistake. There was no ill intent. There is no there. I'm not a criminal. I even explained to them that I'm at the time I was a licensed, not just a license to carry my firearm, but I was a trainer with BMD Security. And I, trained and taught people how to be responsible with their firearm and gun safety and all those things that I've done for over a year now, maybe 2 years with Benny McDonald at BMD Security. So I explained that to the ATF, which stands for alcohol, tobacco, and I believe firearm. So explained that to him as well. He leaves out because it was just him by himself with the U.S. Air Marshal. It was just him by himself. So I'm like, okay, I'm still sitting there, still waiting. The guy is at the outside the door waiting. So then he says, can I get you anything to drink? Can I get you something to eat? Because by this time it's like 10, about maybe 10:30, 11. I'm starving, still kind of nervous, still kind of scared, still can't believe that I put myself in this situation, that I literally forgot that I had my firearm because, you know, I always talk about being a responsible gun owner and carrier. And I just couldn't believe that I literally made that mistake. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna backtrack because one of the things that I said to the air marshal was that I hope that they don't take my mistake and criminalize it. And I said the same thing to the ATF. And I said that, and then, you know, I'm sorry. So after that, I'm waiting. They give me, the guy at the door, the sheriff at the door, give me a water, give me something out of the vending machine. I don't remember what it was. And so I'm waiting. So the next thing you know, the FBI comes in. FBI comes in, two of them, young one and the older one. I explained to them exactly the same thing that happened. You know, this is what happened. You know, as I indicated in the initial explanation to everyone, this is what happened. Woke up, took the shower, took 2 hydros, took an 800 milligram, ate a half a sandwich, I know what time, how long it takes for that to kick in. I drove 10 minutes to my buddy's house. You know, we fiddled around getting things straightened out. And then he drove me to the airport, et cetera, et cetera. Took it off. The TSA helped me take it off. I handed it to her, explained everything to her. The older gentleman said, okay. I said, but sir, again, an honest mistake. Talked about that I was a trainer with BMD Security on gun safety. And he said, okay. He said, well, you know, I know that you know the process. So I'm looking like, okay. This is the FBI. He says, because we know you've traveled with your firearm before. Yes. On a trip, when I took my firearm with me out of town, I know the procedures. You contact security, the law enforcement. You let them know. When you show up, you have to show up with your firearm separate from, engaged from the magazine, meaning there can't be a magazine or any bullets in the firearm. And then the firearm has to be completely disengaged, meaning that the slider has to be back. And generally you put a little strip tie between it. And then inside a gun case, a lockbox. You show them your driver license and you also show them your carry conceal. Then they take your firearm, they put it underneath the belly of a plane, and then when you get to your destination, law enforcement will then go retrieve that firearm. You got to go back to security, show them your driver license and your carry conceal. Then they'll hand you your firearm and tell you, Mr. Davis, please do not open this firearm or engage this firearm until you are off airport property. So the FBI knew that I knew the procedures. And as I said to them, there is no there there. So they was fine with it. They left. And, you know, I would go into the fact the young guy was, you know, the young FBI agent. He was a little cocky. He was a little arrogant, but that's irrelevant. Because at the time he was irrelevant. I think he was just being really nasty. But the older guy showed just respect because he knew that I knew what I was talking about, and he knew that he was sitting before an individual who was responsible, and I wasn't a threat to myself or anyone else or anything. That I was not a threat, that I was not an issue. And that was the actual process. So I sat there for another, I think, 4 or 5 hours. Then I finally was able to make a phone call, you know, talk to my family, express some things. Then I was told, given advice, don't say anything else. You know, because I explained that I had spoke to the FBI, I spoke to the ATF, spoke to the air marshal, spoke to Monroe County sheriffs. Stop talking. So I'm like, okay, you know, you take legal advice and you stop talking. But, you know, when you're innocent, when you know that there's no ill will or no malice, you want to tell your story. But, I took the advice and stopped talking. By this time, it's like about 5:15 p.m. So this started at 4:45 a.m. And by this time, it's 5:15 p.m. So I was at the airport in a room for like 12 hours, literally. The Monroe County Sheriff, who I spoke to first initially, comes back with a piece of paper. Mr. Davis, can you explain to me what happened again? I said, I explained to you initially. Well, I know, but can you tell me again? I said, no, not without an attorney. So Governor Hochul signed into law these new gun laws sometime in September, the beginning of September. It wasn't due to go into effect 2 to 3 months after the signing of the law. So technically, not just technically, but legally, I never should have been charged because the law was not in effect. And I just want to remind you all that from having surgery, and I know you guys know this, but sometimes some people will, try to put stuff in the game when they read this podcast or when they view this podcast. The hydrocodone that I was taking were prescribed by my physician. The 800 milligram Motrin was prescribed by my physician because of the surgery. So, and I just wanted to make that clear, crystal clear, so that, the scrutiny, when you folks see this, that they're clear, that I wasn't just out popping pills, because that's not something that I do. So once I was, read my Miranda rights, taken to the Monroe County Jail, processed, got into the jail cell, and I have to say that there were some deputies at the Monroe County Jail who was just very gracious. And 2 of them said to me, "Bro, I don't even know why you're here. You shouldn't be here. We saw the news, and one of them said, I knew it was BS when I saw it. They're like, this man ran for mayor. He gonna try to sneak a gun in the airport? Like literally the deputy said that to me. And I kind of explained to them a little bit, the scenario. And so, to those deputies, I want to say thank you for treating me with respect. And thank you for seeing, through it from the beginning, that, I was being maligned and targeted in such a way. So with that being said, I just want to make sure that the people in the city of Syracuse have a clear understanding of exactly what had transpired with my gun charges that I was legally licensed to carry for some time, that I wasn't just running around, carrying a gun illegally. And most people who know me and know that I was licensed to carry know that I carried my gun every day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I've always carried my firearm. And I've always been a responsible firearm carrier. I've trained and taught people about being responsible and carrying a firearm. So I know the laws, and I continue to brush up on the laws because they change. But I always stayed astute, or at least tried to stay as astute as possible. Did I know everything? No. But I try to stay, definitely astute of the laws, being that I was, considered myself a very responsible gun owner. So here at this podcast of Keeping It 100 and being completely transparent, I just wanted to make sure that I give you, the voters, an opportunity to hear from me. Because yes, this is me, and I'm running for mayor of Syracuse. And in November, Absolutely, I want your vote because you need somebody who has integrity. And I believe I'm that person. And so I'm going to give one of the hosts and um, the other host an opportunity to ask me some questions, and I'll respond to those questions. Again, complete transparency, honesty, and integrity. That's what you'll get from me under my administration, and that's what you're going to get from me from my podcast, because we're going to be coming back now that the things are moving with the campaign. We're going to be doing the podcast quite frequently. So I'll give you an opportunity to ask me whatever question you'd like to ask, and I'll be more than willing to answer you.
So, this situation that you were in, certainly we see the complex part of this. You just had surgery. And so, has anyone else been in this scenario?
That's a very good question. So, my sister was a TSA agent. She called me and she said to me, they targeted you. She said, because as a TSA agent for over 14 years in Syracuse and Rochester, her herself has processed maybe close to 100, if not more, between Syracuse and Rochester. I'm the first person that she's aware of that got arrested. And since my arrest that happened September 22nd, 2022, between then and I think February or March, or right before the new year, there was like 10 people who were stopped between Syracuse and Rochester with firearms. Not a single person was arrested. And when you go into the next year, now you're talking about 2023, between Syracuse and Rochester, the number had gone up to like 18 or 19 people stopped with firearms. Not a single person arrested. But what's even more crazy is that at that time, there were like maybe 3 or 4 of them with firearms that weren't even licensed to carry firearms and was not arrested. And one of those individuals, or I think a couple of those individuals, crossed state lines in a vehicle and then attempted to fly out of Syracuse with the firearm, was not arrested. Another individual with the high capacity magazine, like almost a banana clip, I think it was like 23 rounds, was not arrested. And so, and when I say not charged, they were, given appearance tickets to come to court, which what my sister told me should have happened to me. I should have never been arrested and taken to jail. I should have been given an appearance ticket, because quite honestly, that's what the sheriff told me. They'll give you this appearance ticket. She said, we'll get you on your flight. You'll come back and you'll deal with this when you come back. Everyone since me was given that liberty. They were given an appearance ticket and they were able to come back. And all of those cases were ACD.
Were any of them people of color?
Just me. So till date, 2025, August, there's been 29 people between Rochester and Syracuse who were stopped with firearms, given appearance tickets and were ACD. And there was a few people here.
What is ACD?
Adjourned in contemplation of dismissal. That's what they were given, an ACD. But I was given a ride to the Monroe County jail cell. And in Onondaga County, there was a couple of people who weren't even, the prosecution didn't even release their names. The paper wanted their names. They wouldn't even release their names. But my name was plastered all over. As a matter of fact, my name was on NPR. The day it happened, that morning by 6 o'clock in the morning, somebody told me they heard my name on NPR. Former candidate for mayor of Syracuse on NPR by 6 a.m. in the morning. So there's a clear discrepancy. So to answer your question, yes, it's happened to several people, but unfortunately for me, I'm the only one who was actually arrested and taken to jail.
So have your charges been dropped?
My charges were, I was acquitted of the charge for gun in a sensitive place, and I was acquitted of the charge for having the gun, which was rightfully so. Just to backtrack on that question, was I the only one arrested? I was given the option of pleading to those 3 felonies or taking it to trial. And I certainly wasn't going to plead to 3 felonies when I know that I was innocent. The ACDs were put on the table for them immediately. So yeah, they had to go before a judge, and it was worked out. And the judge, the prosecution offered that ACD with their attorney, and the judges sign off and say, well, accept it. But I wasn't going to do that. So, and let's be clear, the ACD is literally a dismissal of the charges. I was never offered that. I was never offered that ACD. I was offered plead guilty or take it to trial. And my lawyer tried to talk to the DA to say, hey, listen, this guy never been arrested, legally licensed to carry his firearm. I mean, he went through the gamut. They didn't want to negotiate nothing. They said either plead to the charges or take it to trial. That's what I was left with.
And this trial is a jury trial or just before a judge?
I chose to go before a judge versus having a jury because I felt that the judge would follow the letter of the law. Meaning that at the time of the incident, those charges were not even in effect legally. And I just assumed, and you know what they say when you assume, I believe that the judge will follow the letter of the law. And so that's why instead of doing a jury trial, I chose a trial by judge. So that was my decision.
So how did that work out? Did they dismiss?
Well, again, I was acquitted on the gun charge of having a gun, rightfully so, because I'm licensed to carry my firearm.
That's right.
I was acquitted on gun in a sensitive place, rightfully so, because the law was not in effect. So, yeah, I should have been acquitted on those charges. And I also should have been acquitted on the magazine because the law was not in effect.
So to wrap up, please just let us know where things are, and then I want to wrap up with a concluding question for you.
Okay, so right now, we went to court on Tuesday. Um, it was kicked back down uh, to the lower courts with the judge that I went before. He denied the motion to dismiss it. Um, my lawyer made the argument of um, uh, that the fact that the charges never should have been brought because at the time of the arrest, um, it had not gone into effect. New law had not gone into effect. That's one. And then the other one was selective prosecution. And so now that he denied that motion, he answered the motion that the appeals court had sent back down. So now we have to get the transcript. It'll go back to my lawyer will resubmit it to the appeals court, and then we will wait for the appeals court to make a decision on that. And they take their time and comb through it and look at everything thoroughly, and then they'll make a decision. And I'm believing, just based on the law, that it will be overturned, and then I will be vindicated 100%.
That's exciting to hear. So just to wrap up, can you share your vision for the future of Syracuse? Because ultimately, thank you for your transparency and talking about what has happened. But, ultimately, everyone wants to know why they should vote for you.
Well, thank you. That's a great question. It was very important for me for the voters to understand that this situation concerned me because there was a lot of rumbling in the community, and there still is, about the situation with my gun charge and the arrests. So I just wanted to clear the air. I wanted to be completely transparent and 100% honest with the voters of the city of Syracuse. Um, I believe that I am the absolute best candidate that is running for mayor of this city right now. Um, Given the climate that we are in, um, when people speak about poverty, they say child poverty, but I dismiss that from the perspective that children will not be in poverty if their parents or parent weren't in poverty. So child poverty doesn't exist if the mother or father isn't in poverty. And 90% of those times it's the mother. And so we have to be very honest about that to say that poverty exists among young adults, older adults, because the financial and economic situation in the city of Syracuse is not the greatest. And that's due to, in my opinion, the mishandling of our city from this current administration and everybody in this current administration. It doesn't exclude Ben, Sharon, everybody that's in this administration. Over the past 7 years, poverty has actually gone up 37% under this current administration. Crime has gone up 27.8%, and some people say it's even higher. And I know that, this current administration did something on social media talking about crime has gone down. Well, many people in the city of Syracuse are smart. They read the blotters. They read, stuff that happens in the newspaper, and they see what's going on in our community. So they want a leader, and they want a vision, someone who's visionary and someone who is going to lead this community in a direction in the way in which it should go. They want somebody who's going to be completely transparent, somebody who's going to be completely honest with them about not just the state of the city, but how we can transform our city in a very meaningful and positive way in terms of being able to create an environment that is inclusive of everyone and exclusive of no one. I'm a firm believer that when you lift up the very least of them, then everything rises. And we have to work from that standpoint in order to move our city forward. And so on November 4th, I'll tell people, and I'll say this today, and I'll say it tomorrow, and I'll say it up until election and even after the election. Well, once I win, I won't need to say it. But if you want to see your city move in a direction that is going to be inclusive of everyone, then I'm the person that you want to choose as your next mayor on November 4th. If you think that we are going in the right direction and you don't think things need to change, you don't think that poverty needs to decrease, you don't think crime needs to decrease, then select the person, the other person. And I'm not even going to say their name, but just select the other person. But if you believe that we need a true change and someone who is going to be willing to fight for you, fight for this community, and someone who is strong and equipped and ready to fight for you and fight for this community, then I respectfully say to you that on November 4th, go to the poll, select Alfonso Davis. I am running as an independent candidate, and when you see me on the independent candidate, you will see integrity, accountability, and collaboration. That's the line I will be on. I'm the individual who I believe, born and raised right here in the city of Syracuse, have been fighting for the people in the city of Syracuse for a very long time as a community activist, been working for people in the city of Syracuse for a long time without being elected. So I know how to move. I know how to get it done. I've actually written legislation, helped write legislation in the city of Syracuse. I understand the budget. I understand how to move a city forward. I have relationships in Albany, in DC, with people. I have relationships with people literally globally through some of the relationships that I've been able to foster with certain different people in my community, like yourself, to help me broaden my network and my ability to have relationships with these other people. If you want a strong leader, if you want somebody who's going to move this city forward, if you want somebody who's going to be inclusive of everyone and exclusive of no one, if you want somebody who's going to make sure that our young as well as our elderly are taken care of in a very meaningful way, if you want somebody who's going to be completely transparent, then I respectfully say to the people of the city of Syracuse that on November 4th, go to the poll, and I'm not going to say consider me, I'm going to say vote for me. I will truly be the change agent that this city needs to transform our city to a better place than what we have currently in this administration. So with that, I thank you all for tuning in to this podcast, keeping it 100. I will be coming back to you probably in another week or so with some more information, and maybe not just about my podcast, but just about things in our city and things that's going around us so that we can continue to progressively move forward in this city and in our community. Peace, love, and prosperity. Again, thank you for tuning in to Keeping It 100 podcast.